Those 4 groups have wildly different needs. And those are just 4. There's actually hundreds of different groups that are going to be using a word processor. There's no way that just one person can really understand the needs of all of those different groups. But if we focus on a niche, we narrow down, we have the ability to really understand in a very intimate way the needs and the problems that niche faces. And best of all, if we are able to come up with a tool that really solves their problem, that caters to their needs, we have a chance of finding ourselves in a situation where our tool becomes regarded as indispensable to that industry. That's a pretty good situation to be in. Catering to a niche also has the effect of lessening competition, both in quantity and in quality. Now, put yourself in the position of somebody at Adobe. You're having ideas pitched to you, you're trying to come up with the next product line for your company. Somebody comes in and they say, I have this great idea, it has a possibility of $250,000 in revenue per year. You're not even interested. $250,000 isn't even going to cover your engineering costs, much less any profit left over. But if you're an indie, that's a lot of money. I'll take $250,000. That's going to support me just fine. Might even support a small team. And so when you concentrate on a niche, you have the effect of insulating yourself from some of the big players that are out there, simply because they don't want to compete against you because there's not enough money there. And so when you're able to push away the big players, the people that you're left with are the small guys, like me and you. Other people who have limited resources and are frankly probably indie, small groups, but it levels the playing field. And that seems fair to me. That's the kind of competition I want to choose. Reducing competition also has the effect of helping us to push back against pricing pressure, has the effect of raising our profit margins. And the reason for that is when there's fewer people in the market, there's less need to succumb to that race to the bottom. You don't have to price your apps at 99 cents because there's fewer people doing it. There's not that race to the bottom to quite the extent. Now, the thing about catering to a niche is that if you have a very specific problem that you're solving, if you can supply a solution to that problem, that makes your solution very valuable. And if you don't have the competition, the price competition driving your price down, instead of selling your solution for 99 cents, you have the ability to step back and say, you know what? I have a solution to your problem. If you would like that solution, I'm going to need $9.99. And if they say yes, you've just increased your revenue by a factor of 10. And that factor of 10 increase in revenue has a big impact on your runway, has a big impact on your ability to weather the storms that affect all small businesses. It really does a great job of making a small business just a little bit more viable. So if you accept that we want to enter a niche, that still leaves the other 2 points. Why one that has money? Why one that values its time? Well, we want to enter a niche that has money because we want money, and if they don't have it, they can't give it to us. We want one that values its time because that's our value proposition. Ultimately, what we're doing is we are trying to sell a solution that trades time for money. We are offering the customer the chance to spend more time doing something they enjoy or less time doing something they don't enjoy in exchange for their money. And if they don't value their time more than they value that money, they're not going to buy your software. So we're looking to enter a niche that has money and values its time. If that's the case, we've got to find a niche. And to do that, we're going to have to do some brainstorming. Now, there's lots of ways to brainstorm. No one way is right. I have my preferred way, you may have your preferred way, but this is the way I like to do it. When I'm looking for app ideas, I like to look for niches that revolve around 3 broad categories. Hobbies, interests, and occupations. Now, when we're talking about hobbies, we're talking about things that people like to do. Things like camping, cooking, photography, and all the other activities that people enjoy. When we're talking about interests, we're talking about things that people like to learn about and like to investigate more. Pets, astronomy, parenting, those types of things. Occupations? Well, there's all kinds of occupations in this world. All you have to do is go to any government website and come up with a huge list. But why concentrate around these 3 topics? Well, the reason why is because, frankly, this is where people spend their money. And people spend money to do things that they enjoy. They spend money to become more effective at their job. They spend money to avoid spending extra time doing their job. Now this is, if you think of your daily life, this is where you spend money, and that's where your customers are spending their money too. So once you've come up with a list of ideas for a niche that you want to investigate, the next step, of course, is to sort of winnow that list down. Because you can't, you're in India, right? You have limited time. You've got to really concentrate on the thing that's going to be most effective for you. So if you're going to narrow that list down, we're going to have some criteria to evaluate our list. And as we go through, we're going to ask ourselves a bunch of questions. First of all, how big is our market? Is it big enough? Is our niche big enough to sustain a business? That's a hard question to answer, honestly, especially as an indie, because we don't have the resources to do complicated polling and surveying to find out where people's interests lie and how willing they are to buy software. But there is a useful rule of thumb you can use. It's called the magazine test. In general, if there is a magazine that's dedicated to the niche that you're investigating, it probably means that there's enough people interested that you can support a software business on. Now think about it as you're walking through the bookstore. You're walking down the magazine aisle. You see magazines about martial arts, about aquariums, about astronomy, all these different things. The one thing all these magazines have in common is that they have enough circulation to be able to attract advertisers. There's enough people interested in these topics that they can get people to pay money to reach the readers. Well, if there's enough people that are interested in these topics to support advertising, there's probably enough people interested in these topics to support your software as well. The next question to ask is, can you reach your niche? This is a screenshot from my friend Jim Dalrymple's site, The Loop. And it's sort of a placeholder for all the blogs that are out there, not just technology related, but all the other topics as well. And what you'll notice at most of these blogs is they have a little sidebar. And in the sidebar, there's a place you want to be. And it's right there. You want to be able to put your message in front of their audience. And not just a tech blog, but a blog dedicated to your niche. You will need to find where your group gathers online, and you need to be able to put your message in front of them. You need them to know about you. You need them to know about your product. You need them to know that you have a solution to their problems. Advertising is the way that you do that. App Store is not advertising. That's your distribution model. You need to advertise as well. And finding your niche online is one way of getting that done, and an affordable way for an indie. Blogs, of course, aren't the only way to do that. And a somewhat even more effective way is to find where your group gathers online message boards and forums and things like that. And blogs and online newspapers and such are really one-way media. The writer is taking their message and sending it to the readers. Messages or forums and message boards have the ability to make that conversation go both ways. And best of all, you get to get involved in that conversation. And so as you get to know the audience, as you get to know the people on this message board, you really get to understand their problems in a much better way. You get to understand what sort of frustrations they have, and best of all, how you can solve that frustration. Another advantage of that is that you get to be seen online as a part of that community. You get to be seen as someone who understands the community. You build up a sense of legitimacy. People see your name, they recognize you, and they know that you understand their problems. And by extension, they understand that the software that you sell is going to actually suit their needs and solve their problems, which is a good thing to have. The other thing to talk about is, the other question to ask is your audience willing to spend money? Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. It's going to really depend on the group. In general, the more passionate your niche is about that topic, the more likely they are to spend money towards those interests. So that's one of the things you want to evaluate as you're looking at the niche, looking at how passionate people are online, how many do they have conventions, do they have online communities. The more active people are, the more passionate people are, the more likely they are to spend money on their interests in general and on your software in particular. So once you've winnowed down that list and you've chosen a market, we're ready to go on to step 2, which is conceiving of the product. And to conceive of the product, we're going to go through a little bit more brainstorming. We're going to brainstorm some product ideas. And as we do that, we're going to have to talk to people that are in that niche. If you happen to be in that niche, that's great. All you have to do is walk up to the mirror, say hi, smile for the camera, and then go through your head and think about all the problems you guys have on a daily basis. What are your frustrations? What are the things that you wish were easier? And then, frankly, just write an app or a piece of software to solve those problems. Now, we can't all go around selling software to each other. We can't just sell software to developers all over the place. At some point, we've got to get outside that community. And so the likelihood is that you probably are not going to be part of the target niche that you're interested in. And so at that point, you're going to have to go beyond the mirror and actually talk to other people. Now, hopefully, you find a niche that you have some sort of connection to. Friends, family, spouse, somebody who you know well that you can talk to about their problems. And then what you want to do is you want to sit down and interview them. It may not be a formal interview, but you're just going to be asking a lot of questions and doing a lot of listening as well. The goal is to ask them questions about what sorts of frustrations they face on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Find out what things they wish for easier, what little things just really frustrate them every single day. And as you learn more about their occupation, as you learn more about their interest, as you learn more about the niche that they're a part of, you're going to learn more about the ways that you can solve those problems. As you're coming up with a list, another way to do this is to come up with product ideas, is to look for real-world objects that you can turn into virtual objects. Now, in this case, I'm talking about old media encyclopedias. Now, this is sort of not the best example because we're sort of a little bit past that. I mean, encyclopedia manufacturers are going out of business now, and it's been completely co-opted by the web. But that's not a bad place to be in for you if you think in that mindset. Are there real-world objects that you can co-opt, that you can bring onto the mobile device, that you can bring on the iPhone, the iPad? It's worked out well for me. One of my apps is called Benjamin, and it's for people who have a particular planning system called the Franklin Planner. It's not important the details, but the one thing that is important, people are crazy for it. The people who love it really, really love it. But they don't want to carry around a paper binder. But you put that system on an iPad or iPhone, they love it. Are there other things out there that you could do the same thing to? You've got to think about that. Another place to look for inspiration is desktop software. There's a lot of talk out there that we are now in a post-PC world, right? That we are moving past the desktop and now everything is mobile. That's where the future of computing is. Well, if you believe that, there's still time to get ahead of that curve a little bit. There's still some software out there, still a lot of software out there that doesn't run on mobile. It's PC only, very valuable software. If you can find some of those pieces of software that understand those problems and make that translation to mobile, you have the chance to sort of get ahead of the old guard. Be able to be in place before they have a chance to react. People are looking for mobile solutions, and if you can provide one for a solution they're already using on desktop, that's a pretty good market to address. Again, after brainstorming, we have a list of product ideas. Now we need to evaluate those. And so again, we're going to go through some questions. We're going to look at those and try to figure out which ones are the best for us. As you go through these, the first thing to ask yourself is, does my product idea address a pain point? If so, how strong is that pain point? How frequently is that pain experienced? The more painful and more frequent the pain that a person experiences, the more likely they are to buy a solution to that problem. Does your product save the customer money? I'm always amazed by some of these apps out there that allow you to track information like mileage for tax purposes and things like that. So that's, to me at least, that seems like the easiest value proposition to sell. Buy my app today for $10. Use it consistently. And then come April 15th, I'm going to save you on average $250 in taxes. That seems pretty straightforward. Who wouldn't jump at that? If you can find a way that you can demonstrably save the customer money, that makes your sales process a whole lot easier. Related, you save the customer time. This one is particularly important when you're dealing with a niche that relates to an occupation, because time is money. And if you can save an employee time, if you can make them more efficient, there's a lot of employers out there that will be happy to spend money on software to make their employees more efficient and ultimately save on payroll. What's the existing competition look like out there? How tough is it? Now, don't be afraid necessarily of existing competition. One of the best situations I can think of is the case where you're going into a market where there's existing competition that's bad. And the reason I say that is because the fact that they exist is proof that there's demand for a product. If a customer is having a problem that's so painful that they're willing to buy bad software to solve that problem, think how much they're willing to spend if you come in with a good solution. If you can come in and provide a better solution to a painful problem, especially if there's the competition out there isn't that strong, you're going to find people jumping to your product instead. And finally, and this one is painful to even admit, one of the things you have to consider is, can you charge money? what's your monetization plan? You know, we all know that people are becoming much more reluctant to pay for software, and that's a fact of life, one that we have to deal with. So you have to ask yourself, is this particular product one that I can make money off of? Now, there's lots of ways to do that. You can do the traditional model where you pay up front and then receive the software in exchange. You can do some sort of subscription service. You can do freemium. You can do in-app purchase. Lots of ways to make money with software. But you've got to decide before you even open up Xcode whether this is a product that you can actually make money on. Because if you can't, it's not a business. It's a hobby. So at this point, we've conceived our product, the second in our third list. And so we're left with the last one, which is execution. Now, as I said, I can't really help you with execution, but you do have to execute. You've got to execute at a very high level. Competition is fierce in the App Store. I don't have to tell you guys that. So you need to go through and you have to execute. But you've got to execute beyond just the market, because although the market is the most important factor for software, the success of a software business, it's not the only factor of success for a software business. We have these others as well. You've got to really nail marketing. You've got to really nail aesthetics. You've got to really nail functionality. You've got to end up with a great app that people are happy to spend money on, that people are happy to have solve their problem. But if you can execute at all those levels, if you can bring all those pieces together, I think we have a real chance of taking that 0.01% and increasing our odds of success in the App Store, of moving beyond just hopes and wishes, and maybe finding ourselves in a situation where more people can take that leap, go indie, and find themselves living the dream. Thank you, guys. I think we have some time for some questions today. All right. There's somebody.